writer opened the door to his home. He wasn't expected to be home this early. In fact, he was still supposed to be hanging out with Nikki and Minx. But he had left as soon as he could. After all, he never was one for social interaction. As he stepped through the door, he was greeted by the laughter of his younger brother and his father's voice lecturing his siblings. The writer made his way to the living room to greet his family with his presence, though he knew they didn't truly care about whether he were there or not. "What have they done this time?" he asked, voice as uninterested as he could possibly make it. The noise stopped as they turned to him. Great, another thing he ruined. His dad gave off a warm smile as he spoke to his son. "Wilbur, I thought you were supposed to be back later. What happened?" Already avoiding Will's question. "I just felt a bit overwhelmed, as usual." He shrugged. Techno looked at him with the slightest doubt, but simply brushed it off as if it meant nothing to him, instead saying, "Tommy's grown wings." The air in the room grew thick as he heard the words. Sure, they were simple words, really. Tommy grew wings. That didn't bother Wilbur at all. In fact, he was glad his little brother had grown wings, unlike himself. He was proud even, though he couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy at the words. His younger brother got powers before he did. How? Both their parents had powers, and both his siblings did, so why didn't he have powers too? He brushed it off and left the room, explaining how he was going for a shower. An obvious lie. Crowfather was seen today saving a girl from suicide. We are currently here at the scene to ask him about it, the reporter said through the screen. Will groaned out. He didn't hate his father or the news, don't get him wrong. It's just he wanted to hear something other than people singing his father's praise every now and again. Is it impossible for people to not kiss my dad's ass? He thought as he lied on his bed. He's been there for what felt like centuries now, just listening to people talking about his dad as if he's the centre of their whole being. Will sat up and looked at his mirror. It had been a while since he'd actually seen himself. Looking into the reflective surface, he could only cringe at the sight. His skin was probably the same colour as a piece of paper by now, which didn't help to hide the dark bags under his eyes, and oh god, it seemed that somehow the rich caramel colour in his eyes were draining into as black as well. His messy brown hair flopped over his right eye as he fought the urge to sweep it away from his eyes, and instead made his way to the mess he called a desk. He sat down on his chair and pulled his book open, taking note on how the majority of the pages were empty. He needed to get something written down, but staring down at the blank pages, nothing shot out at him. He could do a report on his father, but that had been done many times, and he seriously couldn't handle too much time in the same room as that man. He could probably do an original story, but then again, he'd probably go over someone else's idea. He could do a report on himself. After all, he was the only powerless kid in his family. No, that's stupid. He can't let anyone know how unstable he truly is. He hit his head against the desk, letting out a long sigh before falling back into the sound of whatever stupid show he'd put on. It wasn't very interesting, until he had glass shatter. He jolted up straight and stared at the screen. The Chuckle Trio have just broken in. Someone please call Crowfather, please. He waited in anticipation as he finally heard footprints approaching the camera.
"Yeah, old man, come down here so we can talk,"
the ram spoke. All that came next was a crash and static. He'd got to them. A smile spread across his face as he realised what he was going to write about. But first things first, he'll need to locate the trio and hope they don't instantly kill him. He wanted to be the first one to get close to the three and find out why they were like this. After all, no one just decides to become a serial killer out of nowhere. Oh god, this was going to take so long. Why would you think this was a good idea? Of course he was going to still do it though.
I'm not angry anymore, well, sometimes I am. I don't think badly of you, well, sometimes I do.